Download Whiskey Hell Podcast. We call attention to the mainstream media narratives weekly in hopes that you'll have fun with how ridiculous the news really is. We don't want to change your mind. We just want to give you perspective so that you can choose more wisely and be more aware. Couple that with great craft beer, hilarious stories, deep thoughts, and real conversations. We know you're going to enjoy it. Download Whiskey Hell Podcast anywhere you find outstanding shows.
Take my eyes open to force reality. Why can't you just let me eat my weight in glee? Hush.
All right. How is everyone doing on this Wednesday? A little midweek check-in for everybody. Welcome to World Ablaze. We're going to start this out by first letting you know we are brought to you by Fonts Pro Sound and Light. They are the premier provider of your AV and event services for all corporate and special events. You can find them at fontsprosound.com. That's FONTES prosound.com. Again, Fonts Pro Sound and Light for all of your corporate AV needs and special events. All right, moving on from that, shameless plug. Had the opportunity this weekend to take, I guess, a bit of a vacation. Actually, before we get to that, damn, it's Wednesday. It feels like a fucking Friday. I ain't gonna lie to you. Monday was long. Tuesday was hard. So I think it's time to, do one of those. Not gonna lie, it's probably my second beer by now. But, anyway, we got to experience the Bay. We went out there, spent some time with some friends. We're not going to say any names or whatnot, just to protect certain individuals, top secret missions and all. But anyway, very interesting to get exposed to the Bay Area out here in California, as we don't live there anymore. My wife hasn't lived there for many years. I was born in the Bay and moved away. And to be quite honest, very interesting not to be around so many liberal-minded people. And the reason I'm bringing this up, because it was kind of a shock to see, what happened to liberal-minded people in general. They don't seem like liberals anymore. Very judgmental, have a lot to say about everyone and everything. I got to say, it's to the point where it's very tribal. And a lot of what's said makes no sense whatsoever. It's as if you don't agree with what the party says, if the Democratic Party, whatever it is that they're backing at that particular moment in time, if you're not on board with that, then you're a piece of shit. You don't matter. Your opinion doesn't matter, and you're basically a stupid individual, an uneducated individual who doesn't know what they're talking about. And this is how they treat people. And I don't think they go out of the way to do this, because I didn't feel like they were. It's just ingrained in them. It's just, hey, it's a matter of fact. This is who we are. This is what you need to believe. This is what's right. And everything outside of that is bullshit. It was very shocking to experience that. And of course, the same old thing over and over. The only thing they can ever really bitch and complain about completely without remorse and are absolutely correct on is Trump. You would be surprised that for a Democratic, a member of the Democratic Party, or a liberal in general, how many times they bring up Trump, and how many times, aside from that they try to bait you into a political conversation. I sidestepped it pretty well. I chose not to engage just because I don't want to get into any fights. I was understanding enough to realize that they have their opinion. I might have mine. My wife may have hers, and that's where we're at. But it doesn't mean we can't be friends. But I got the impression that if you were to say the wrong thing in response, it was over. And in fact, in not so many words, I heard that's pretty much how it went for a couple of other friends. So be careful out there when you're dealing with the new Democratic Party, because years ago, this is not what they were. I remember you could look towards your liberal friend to basically put a Republican in check. Some guy who was a little too far right, liberal friend might go, look, you're going a little too far outside the lines here, They'd bring you back down to earth. Now, man, it's pretty much all or nothing. It's almost how do I say it? Very, what's the word? I'm losing it, guys. I'm sorry about that. They just follow blindly. Again, it's really all about the tribe, the group, where it's going. I back blue because that's what it is, and if you don't like it, then go fuck yourself. Like literally, quite literally. So that was a bit tiring. You just got to learn to, brush that off and move on. So if you're out there, if you're not a Democrat, if you're not a Republican either, whatever your affiliation is, or maybe you just can't decide because you kind of like, hey, I'm in the middle, do not engage and get baited into a conversation of someone who follows the new Democratic Party, because it will not be a good experience, and I guarantee you're no longer going to be friends. Oh, as I take a drink. Anyway. Yeah. Again, I know it's Wednesday, but it should be Friday. And so the takeaway from that is be careful out there. Don't let them bait you into a heated political discussion, argument, battle. They'll definitely try to turn it into a battle. Again, they're not the same Democratic Party they were. Individuals who claim to be liberal are no longer really, the liberals of old. They're very tyrannical, very, very much just, my way or the highway. And again, there's no reasoning with them. You can try and be friends with them as long as you don't get into a political conversation, but there's always going to be those little things that pop up. So believe what you believe, still try to be as open as possible, but be very cautious, because the modern liberal does not acknowledge facts, doesn't care about an opposing opinion, and believe that their supreme leader and crime family in chiefs, the Biden family, does no wrong whatsoever. I know I threw that in. Probably should not. Don't want to make this a totally political show, but regardless, hey, there's evidence on all sides against everybody right now. And to completely ignore the headlines, which are, pretty much being pushed out there by the liberal media, your own team, by the way, to just act as if that doesn't exist or doesn't happen is completely ridiculous. So approach with caution, people, and hopefully you can remain friends. Okay, now for some news that y'all may have missed. Let's talk immigration. Immigration has reared its ugly head again. And what's interesting about this is all the complaining about our current state of immigration and its policies is coming from, Democratic-led cities. Democratic-led cities that declare themselves sanctuary states. It's funny I'm talking about this again. I discussed this in an earlier episode of the Stretch Goose podcast with my brother, and we went over a lot of facts and, numbers regarding this topic. I'm going to dive that deep. I'm going to, let's come a little more forward now to what's happening. New York, for example, a sanctuary state, is declaring a state of an emergency due to the influx of migrants, a city that is supposedly welcoming, basically has huge open arms for immigration. But what's funny is when it's at their front door, okay, Texas, for example, has been dealing with this issue for many years, and they have been flooded and overwhelmed by the hundreds and hundreds of thousands consistently for years. Arizona also, for example. But when immigrants start getting sent up to New York and coming from different areas such as Venezuela, it seems like it's now a problem. The city can't handle it. They're overwhelmed. And the crazy thing, let me just read a little excerpt here from the New York Times. Mayor Adams, where we go? New York Times. Mayor Eric Adams declares a state of emergency as the number of people in New York City's overwhelmed homeless shelters headed for a record amid the influx of thousands of migrants from Latin America. Let me just go ahead and read the first few. Here we go. He called for state and federal funding to help pay for housing and services and urged the federal government to allow newly arrived asylum seekers to work legally and to slow the northward flow of migrants from the border. So he's asking for federal funding from our government to take care of this problem, and is saying that the U.S. government needs to slow the flow of immigration. Interesting. He also went on to say, quoting him, "We need help and we need it now." Says also, New York City is doing our part, and now others must step up and join us. Very, very interesting there, Mayor Adams. Also, another very liberal Democratic ran state that is a sanctuary state, Chicago. Here's another one. Lightfoot declares emergency amid new surge of immigrant arrivals. I got this one from the Chicago Sun-Times. So, claiming Chicago's migrant crisis has reached a breaking point, Mayor Lori Lightfoot on Tuesday issued an emergency declaration as the city tries to deal with the surge of new arrivals in recent weeks. The migrants, asylum seekers, and others with many families among them, including another 48 people, allegedly inhumanely bussed there by Texas Governor Greg Abbott. Though Chicago welcomes new arrivals, says we've reached a breaking point with a new surge expected later this week. Lightfoot said at an afternoon news conference, border controls imposed during the pandemic expire. Says the crisis has been manufactured by Abbott for cynical political purposes, Lightfoot said, adding that Abbott is unable to see the humanity of those he puts on buses and sends north. We are running out of space. Oh, funny. So it's okay for Mayor Abbott to run out of space and deal with hundreds and hundreds of thousands of migrants every year, but when he, with very little resources in Texas anymore to go around, sends it to these sanctuary states that claim that they have huge open arms and hugs and blankets and food and whatever you need, just come with your problems and we're going to help you solve them. We're going to give you a better life. When that happens, because you declare yourself a sanctuary state, it is no longer okay. So from afar, looking at a state like Texas or Arizona with a huge immigration problem, you can say whatever you want about the immigration policy and tell those states that they just need to deal with it. But now that you have to deal with it, you as a sanctuary state has to deal with it, it is no longer okay. I want to also further point out that the city of Chicago, because Mayor Lori Lightfoot had asked for it, or the Chicago mayor, already received federal funding, $4 million approved by FEMA, and is now asking for even more money. So how is money for Chicago and New York going to fix the issue? I really don't understand. I don't understand why it's not okay now. I thought everything was amazing. They've also gone on to say that they're admitting, basically, that the federal government needs to change their policies as far as border control is concerned, as far as our immigration and open border policy is concerned. So these liberal Democratic leaders of the cities of New York and Chicago are now very unhappy with the policies that they backed and helped put in place, but can no longer stand for it because it is now at their door. And they have such a small number when compared, a small number of immigrants when compared to Texas and Arizona and even Florida, such a small number comparatively that they are losing their minds and don't know what to do and are now pointing fingers at the federal government, the democratically led federal government, which they fully supported and fully got behind the policies that got them where they are today. Very, very hypocritical. I don't even know what to say. It's ridiculous. I kind of want to laugh, but I don't, because the people who are really suffering here are the immigrants. They're unwanted, obviously, by anybody. I mean, America definitely was built on immigrants. We are an immigrant nation, and we're very diverse, but we can't have an open border policy anymore. It just doesn't work. We don't have enough resources to handle it. We don't have the capacity to take that much in at once. There just isn't a way for it to work. There just isn't. And I can go into more political reasons as to why they want to keep the borders open, but I won't. Again, I said earlier I didn't want to make this a political show, but these issues are coming back to bite them in the ass. The immigration and border policy we currently have is just not working to the point that the Democratic Party or certain leaders of the Democratic Party themselves are now saying, hey, we need to do something because, you know what, we don't like all these immigrants here at our door, even though we're a sanctuary state. We just can't have that. How freaking hilarious. But aside from the influx of immigrants, here's a very good reason. Here's the loudest bell that you could ring as to why this open border policy isn't working. And obviously our borders are not being protected. Right here, New York Post. This just happened. A trio of armed men were seen crossing the southern border into Texas on Saturday in what is believed to be the latest incident of suspected Mexican cartel members making their way onto U.S. soil. So fully armed individuals from another country, another what could be considered terrorist organization. Call them a cartel, call them what you want. They're terrorists. Seen crossing the border. That is very akin to what we call an invasion, invading a border. And these individuals, they're highly trained. They are fully geared up. We're talking multiple automatic weapons. They have body armor on. I mean, this is not something that we should be taking lightly. So, yeah, you're right, Mayor Lightfoot. We need to do something about the border. And we need to do it soon. Because the only reason Mayor Lightfoot is complaining is because she has too many people to deal with. But ignoring the major issues such as armed cartel or armed members of terrorist organizations coming across the border onto U.S. soil without any consequence, it seems. Again, the border issue has gotten out of control. We need to get back to protecting this country, protecting the lives of not just the individuals here, but those who are trying to come to this country for a better life. Because they're being taken advantage of by the cartels. They're the ones that are paying to come here under the false guise of protection. And guess what? These individuals have to pay this cartel back. And if they don't pay, they will come after them. That's probably what's going on here with the three armed individuals that were caught or monitored anyway. I'm not sure they said they were caught or not. Coming across the border, fully fucking armed. Like, how serious does it got to get? Assassins coming across the border onto U.S. soil? I mean, how much more of a wake-up call do you need? Well, that's the show, everyone. Look, sorry if I went a little hard on that one. I tried not to get too political. But with everything going on, sometimes you just got to call people out on their shit. In America, I got to call you out on your shit right now. We're letting too much happen, and we're going to suffer for it. It's going to get to the point where we're just not going to know who we are anymore. Anyway, if you like the show, please follow, please subscribe, and also listen to me on the Stretch Goose podcast, where I am a co-host with my brother Manuel Fonts. Thank you.